Shadowcoast here, and welcome to a Plague Tale Innocence review. We're going to outline some of the gameplay, and I'm going to provide some of my thoughts. A Plague's Tale is very much about stealth. As you can see here, we spend a lot of our time in the crouch position, evading enemies, going around them, but when needed, we can definitely use several things to our advantage to take out the enemy. We have our trusty wheel here where we can throw rocks and use different items to take out enemies by disabling their flames and having mice eat them. Or in certain cases, we can even have our companions come and incapacitate enemies, as we can see here. Oh, but he's in trouble. So we screwed that up. We're going to use something to force him to take his helmet off, and then exposing his head, we can hit him with a rock. So while this is predominantly a sneaking game, there is some offensive capabilities. Another piece of this game that I actually found surprising is that there's a lot of materials that you want to collect so you can upgrade. So off the bat, I just highlighted that we have our mouse wheel here where we can create different items for different situations to fight human enemies, as well as control or ward off rats, which can be devastating and eat you. So an example of this here is we're going to actually show you the proper way that our companion can take out enemies when they're not observed. So I mentioned there are a bunch of materials. These things, just so you know, are hidden throughout the game that contain a bunch of materials that you always want to collect. And then you can also use the workbench to upgrade equipment. Now we are on the second to last mission here, so we've upgraded pretty much everything that we wanted to, although we could continue to collect materials to make some other additional upgrades. Now, playing through this game, it took me about 14 hours to play through. I did tend to kind of take my time to look around and explore and try to get as many materials as possible, but towards the end I started to rush a little bit because I was eager to see what happens in the story. So A Plague Tale is very much a story-driven, linear story-driven game. Like I said, it's a predominantly sneaking game where you try to avoid enemies and use the environment, as well as our trusty sling and other materials we can craft to disable enemies or get around enemies. One thing in this game that we do try to do is avoid, as well as leverage the rats to our advantage. I don't want to give too much away, but suffice to say is at some point we can actually control the rats to our advantage um, by sending them in to take out enemies later in the game. This is extremely useful, but until we achieve that ability, again, I'm not going to give too much away, we very much have to fear the rats, avoid them, and use fire to our advantage. So there are different things that we can craft, like Luminosa, where here, if we throw it, it very much burns the rats away. We can also use Ignifer to light things on fire. So for example, we had put a flame out over here, and, or no, we did not put a flame out. Over here, we can put a flame out by using extinguish, but then we can simultaneously also light it back on fire using Ignifer. So you want to use a combination of these traits that you can also craft if you have the appropriately selected materials. As I mentioned, this is a very linear based game. Effectively, you're going through the main storyline, which is very compelling. The crux of it is that we have our younger brother here, Hugo, and the Inquisition wants him for nefarious reasons. And as the older sister, our job is to protect him, get him to safety, and make sure that he survives. We can do this mostly using our sling and a few trusted friends that we meet along the way. Again, the gameplay is varied. There are multiple ways to take out enemies, to You know, so for example here, this guy has a flame. We can't have the rats eat him until we take the flame out because they very much fear the flame. Overall, I would give this game an 8.5 to 9 out of 10. I thought it was surprisingly fun. This isn't my classic type of game that I normally like to play. That being said, I still very much enjoyed it. Just given the different styles and gameplay and ways to solve the game. The game also contains a fair number of puzzles, be it defeating enemies or leveraging flames and materials to your advantage. It is very varied and fun and can be very challenging at times until you kind of figure it out. The one thing I would say about the game is you really have to look at the entire surroundings because sometimes I'd find myself stuck not understanding what to do, and that was because I was missing a key piece, be it knocking something down to my advantage like that, or finding a path around enemies that seem to be impassable. The other point I would say is that there are a lot of hidden treasure troves if you walk around and explore. So there is a lot to explore. The scenery is fantastic. The music's fantastic. So again, I give this an 8.5 or 9 out of 10, and I highly recommend that you play it. Love to hear your thoughts, but if you do have the advantage to pick this up on sale, I highly recommend it. It has been out for a little while, so if you are going to play it, you are probably best off waiting for a sale to hit, but I do recommend it, and I will be following this developer. I do hope there's another game that continues the storyline. So hopefully you found this somewhat helpful, got a sense and feel for the gameplay. We're going to continue on our way here just a little bit to give you a little more exposure to the game. Our companions can sometimes be a little bit annoying. I personally am someone that likes to be well stocked on all my equipment, so I tend to run around and look and farm out materials. We are playing the second to last mission, so we're pretty much fully upgraded. We've unlocked all the abilities from that perspective. So here, the helmet guy is a lot harder to get. We can take out guys without a helmet. And you also have to make sure that you have the right thing equipped, because throwing water at them did very little. Alright, well that'll conclude our review. Hopefully you found this helpful. As always, appreciate a subscribe and a thumbs up. And we hope to see you in the next video series. Shadowcoast out, and see you in the next one.